So next up on our list, we're gonna talk about transportation electrification. So along the same lines that we talked about on building electrification, the transportation marketplace is changing rapidly. And we have no better expert than Shawn Chandler, who's a member of the council, to come up and talk about that. Thank you, Shawn. Come on up.
Thank you. All right, hey everybody. It's great to be here today. We're just going to talk this is about 15 minutes. So I'm going to be the fastest presentation of the day. My purpose today is to get you interested in transportation electrification much more than you are today. And I know everybody in the room, who's got an electric vehicle sitting at home? 1, 2, 3. 3. Everybody else has a nice vehicle.
I had a hybrid.
Okay, hybrid counts. How many other people have hybrids?
Since 2000.
So about another
So
3 or maybe 5 folks. So we're up to about 30% of the audience has an EV. That's actually doing better than the national average right now. National average right now in the United States is just about 2%. But it's 10% of sales right now. So that number is changing very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and just advance, and we'll talk a little bit about what we mean by a concept model. First off, a concept model is this transportation electrification concept model is driven from another artifact that we developed at Gridwise Architecture Council called the Transactive Energy Concept Model. I hope everybody knows about transactive energy. I've been living it for 20 years, and it's just such an exciting concept. It's really coming true. All these thoughts and wishes and hopes that we've had over the last 20 years are really needed today because of the optimization of the grid that's necessary due to all the challenges and the constraints out towards the edge of the grid. And it's about load growth. You have seen transportation electrification come onto the grid effectively without a whole lot of pain over the last 15, almost 20 years. I was at Portland General Electric. I was a system architect for power operations there for 10 years. And I can tell you that we were working on EVs back in 2005. And when you go all the way back to 2005, boy, people didn't really care much about EVs. They were like, wow, what's that little car? You don't put gas in it. What is that? Versus now today, you know not only what it is, but you're actively looking for charging stations. And that difference over that last 20 years has been very meaningful to many folks, but most importantly in our industry. And it's because of this big degree of change with the electrical usage out at the edge. If it's on a circuit, way out in a residential neighborhood, that circuit is going to be challenged because the electrical use itself. When you think about the amount of kilowatt hours that an average electrical vehicle EV uses in a year, it's about 2,500 kilowatt hours, maybe 3,000 kilowatt hours. And when you think about the total number of kilowatt hours you use as an average home in the United States, it's about 1.2 kilowatt hours average. So right there, that's 30 to 35% more usage for an average home. And when it's coming onto the grid, you don't design your distribution grid for 35% extra capacity. Because of this used and useful, it's very meaningful to the distribution engineer because you haven't designed your circuit for that if everybody has it. But up until now, it's been okay. Just a few stats about the continued modernization and mass market adoption that we're facing. There are 5.8 million EVs in the US, but globally in 2018, there was only 1.5 million total, the whole world. So lots more EVs coming. 2% of all vehicles, I mentioned that, but the compound annual growth rate is 40%. That's the rate that AI is increasing in use. So you're seeing similar curves there with EV. And then 10% of sales in the US, Canada's just a little bit ahead, about 14.5% of all new sales are EV. I know we've got a friend in the audience.
What about Norway?
What's that?
What about Norway?
I don't know Norway, but Europe is way ahead of the
Something
US.
about 60%.
I think it's much higher. What did you say it was, Kate?
I think it's about 60.
60% of new sales are EV. But I want to give you an idea about the megawatt hours, since we're all power industry professionals. 7,500 gigawatt hours annual use today for EV charging. In 2030, 40 million megawatt hours. So 40,000 gigawatt hours. So we're looking at a 5 times increase in the next 4 years for the amount of load at the edge of the grid in the US. About 10% of all vehicles. Today it's 2%. So lots of load growth, enough on the statistics. That's why this concept model is important. I'm going to move on. But when you think about why we need it, it covers all the infrastructure, the high-level processes, and the business capabilities. It's really about, in the Gridwise Architecture Council, our purpose is to show the relationships and the actors and the constraints. So that leads into the background of the concept model. Here, we're starting with NIST. It's just the smart grid framework and the smart grid architecture model. That working group at CENELEC, and then, of course, over at NIST, and what GWAC does here, you're modeling out all the different layers that are meaningful to the industry and other coupled industries. So it's about sector coupling. And that's one of our purposes in developing the concept model at GWAC. I'm going to say it again later, but we're trying to finish this by the end of the first quarter next year, and we're looking for folks to participate with us. And this is important because GWAC is about evaluating, advising, and educating. That's our purpose. And so we're in the evaluation stage right now. I'll talk a little bit more about that. What are we trying to accomplish? There's a lot of work that's been done in the industry to date. You can see a lot of the folks. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's important because you can see here that there's not only lots of big organizations working on it, it's meaningful and it's ubiquitous across our sector, but it's also coupled into other sectors. IEEE, PNNL, SEPA certainly. We're here today because of the way that we're coupled to other industries. That's why there's such a big draw about renewable energy. It's what draws us all together. We all care about energy usage. And here in transportation and electrification, we're trying to figure out and bridge and coordinate between the supply and the demand side and the purpose, the grid objectives. So what can we learn by creating a concept model from that? Well, what we learn is where the constraints are, who the actors are, what the relationships may be, and then how we can identify new business opportunities. I'll talk about that in a moment and repeat myself. But this idea around grid architecture, the sector coupling, what are we really trying to get to? So when you think about the market and the market structures, it's what Ron had just finished presenting on just a few minutes ago. The idea that an operational model in the sector requires multiple players. If you don't draw it out and find out where you may have constraints and new opportunities for relationships, then you don't really move towards efficiency fast enough. And this is somewhere where we need to move towards efficiency very, very fast. And that's really because we've already eked out most of the optimization that we could from the utilities today for the growth that's happened through today. There's not a whole lot out there at the top end of that curve left over for EV managed programs. There's more opportunities. EV fleets, fleet optimization, there's opportunities there. There's certainly more opportunities as new residential customers come on with light vehicles. There's new opportunities with electric school buses adding back into the grid. Those are interesting. Less than 1% of all fleets are electrified right now. There was less than 1,000 sales last year of heavy-duty electric trucks. Less than 1,000 total sales. That's just 1,000 units. And that's going to increase very quickly, especially if many of the folks that you see in the media have anything to do with that. They're going to try to sell those vehicles. And some of them will be automated. They'll drive on their own. As that information about the opportunity increases out into the market and the products, they're going to follow that normal logistics curve. That it's going to start out slow, it's going to rapidly increase, you're going to hit that tipping point, and then it's eventually going to level off. But we're nowhere near that. We haven't even reached the tipping point yet. So with that said, if we describe the touch points between the sectors and the relationships, then we may find new opportunities for that seamless integration and to move quickly towards efficiency like we need to. And then finally, we are seeking a common information model, a common language, call it, and a taxonomy. Taxonomy, just how we describe the language, to improve the clarity between the system participants and the stakeholders. And what does that do? That leads towards an ontology, how everything functions together. And again, and I'm repeating Ron, but that's a very complex system. And anytime you have a complex system, you have to look for emergent behavior. One emergent behavior in the AI space right now is that data centers are looking to create their own generation completely off grid. That's emergent behavior. Another emergent behavior, data center developers are going to multiple utilities with their project just to see who can approve them first, and then they'll build it there. Because they don't really care where they build it. There's too much money on the other side of building that data center. So what are you to do if you're a transmission engineer working at one of these utilities? Do you really believe that that's a real interconnection queue? If you have to do your cluster study for your interconnection queue, how much can you believe that those interconnection requests are real? If you change that, your integrated system planning from tip to tail of that utility is completely thrown off, and you have to redo the entire rate case. So it's not just impacting the transmission engineer, it's impacting everybody in the utility, and the same is true for transportation electrification. So what will it contain? And this is where I'll just kind of step out from behind the podium. Maybe I can turn this on. I just want to show, maybe I can turn this on. Can everybody hear me okay? I can probably
Yeah, you step into recording.
I'm just going to step over here and show you that this model here in the center, this is a transactive. Yes.
Please use the mic as we're recording. Otherwise, we'll never hear you.
This transactive energy model here in the center, this is about participants and transactive agents. It says it's on.
It's on. Let me get the other one.
Yeah, so sorry. Test one, two. Throwing everybody off by leaving the podium. All right, here we go. The domain in this transaction domain, and down here in the electricity distribution domain, you can see that there's these concepts, things like an electric node or a conduction pathway or meter sensing. I know you can't read it from there, that's why I'm saying it out loud. The idea is that you have a subject, predicate, object pair. And when you pair them together, you now understand the relationship between all the parts of the system. And you can say, well, if I have between meter sensing and some value object, what if this constraint is real in some other domain? That means that in order to be seamless, I have to solve that constraint. You don't know about all the constraints in the system unless you diagram it. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Here, let me turn this off so we don't get any squeaks. Make sure you credit this. And the important thing on this, I do want to call out that concept model graph here, that big credit to SEBA because this is their model. We're looking to create this type of model in other domains, but specific to transportation electrification. So identifying new business development, everybody in the room is going to care about that. Identifying the relationships between the actors in the system, we can develop new products, and then finally, to engage in standards activities. All right, so that's my time today. Our future work, we're soliciting input directly from stakeholders. So if you want to put your foot in the door and talk to our team about transportation electrification, where parts of the model that you think are important to you, we are actively soliciting input into our working group to draw your ideas into the concept model. We're planning on publishing it sometime in Q2 2026. We're hoping to finish the advice stage by the end of the first quarter and then publish. Please go ahead and contact us if you have more, if you would like to contribute. Thank you so much.